welcome to everybody that's coming to the field day, and we sure enjoy sharing our story, as will all the people participating in the program. There's a lot to be learned. We're at the tip of the iceberg on this. I think we've got a long ways to go, and learning about how we can continue to improve not just the environment where we're growing crops, but also the quality of crops and the quality of the food that we produce. And look forward to the journey for the next several years with this process as we move forward. I'm Brian Hora from Washington County, Iowa. We've been working on adopting cover crop and now headed towards regenerative practices on our farm, where we raise both corn and soybeans. About 5-6 years ago is when we started our process of adopting cover crops, and mostly it was as a way of preserving soil, stopping soil erosion, and as we learned more, it became a little bit more about weed control, nutrient availability and such. And now over the last 2-3 years, since we have adopted the practice of using the Haney soil health test, and through the information we're tracking on the topsoil tool, Continuum Ag has, we're learning a lot more about the nutrient availability and other benefits of adopting the cover crop practices that we have. So with that process, I guess we really are in more of a regenerative practicing farming practices now. And when I say regenerative, I guess I define that as we are utilizing the cover crops and studying more of the natural biological system versus just a mechanical and chemical system of farming that we have done for years. So with the biological system, we take into account, and through the soil test, we're actually monitoring the amount of biological activity in the soil. So we've been doing this now for several years with the Haney soil health test, and it's been an interesting turn as we monitor, in some cases weekly, the changes of nutrient availability throughout the season. So in that process, I think one of the things that we've really learned is that the biology is really what's driving the chemical and the nutrient availability of the soil. So on herbicides for soybeans, we have it really depends on how the season's going. We definitely have basically eliminated the use of residual herbicides, and both corn and beans we plant green, so we're letting the rye grow, terminate shortly after planting for corn. But with soybeans, we're letting it grow. We'd like to let it go 3 to 4 weeks towards the latter part of May. This year, with the amount of rain we've had, we actually got caught not being able to get back in to get the rye terminated. So the rye that is terminated, we just use 1 shot of Roundup on it, and we may end up having to go back in and spray some Enlist, since we're using the Enlist soybeans. A lot of the rye, though, we did not get terminated, so this will be our 3rd year now that we've used a relay crop. First year we had wheat, last year, and then again this year we're using rye. So this year we'll have in excess of 80 acres of relay crop, rye and soybeans. The beans were planted at the end of April. Since the rye wasn't able to be terminated, we had to just let it go, and we'll harvest that rye off, and seen some really good results of utilizing that system in the past. Our adoption of regenerative farming really started with just the basics of adopting cover crops and utilizing that on the fields, both before corn and soybeans. And it was done mostly as a move to protect the soil, stop soil erosion, get a little extra ground cover, and as you learn more about the benefits of cover crop helping to suppress weeds, but also the cover crop was providing us an opportunity to have living plants growing through a longer portion of the year. So as we worked through a few years and with our normal fertility program, started to realize that there are more benefits and learn more, and so we have been trying to reduce the amount of inputs, both fertilizer and chemicals, especially herbicides, on the farm. So our fertilizer inputs over the last 5 years, we've tried to step it down over a number of years, and we're down to about 30% less nitrogen applied to our corn crop. Our phosphorus over the last 5 years has been cut by nearly 70%, and our potassium by a little over 40%. So in that process, though, we've also learned that we probably need to pay a little closer attention to the micronutrients and the soil biology. So we're definitely putting more micronutrients on, and even some biological additives through the planter, utilizing now a starter system on the corn planter. So big change though has been our soil biology, and we monitor the soil with soil health tests. We've been using that. Continuum Ag started doing that for us a number of years ago, and as we have continued, in many cases, weekly soil samples, watching the availability of nutrients using the Haney soil health test. So we monitor a lot of nutrients. We monitor soil carbon. We're monitoring organic matter, but especially soil biology and the biological activity that we see. In that, we have definitely seen increases, and as we have adopted that regenerative practice, which is trying to reduce the amount of synthetic inputs, particularly fertilizer, we keep reducing those rates, but with the soil test, we see our nutrient availability for the crop actually increase, and it's been a steady incline over the last couple of years. The other thing that we really notice is as we walk across the fields, we can definitely tell there's a lot more activity in the field with the soil biology, particularly earthworms. Our residue just disappears on us, so we're having to make some adjustments to our cover crop program. The cover crop, as we started out 6 years ago, we were probably planting a little too heavy the first year or two. We backed it off. Ahead of corn, we've used a lot of wheat. We like the wheat because of the way it grows a little bit slower in the spring. It's a little easier to plant the corn into. It breaks down fast as well, and the worms really attack that, and that residue disappears in a hurry. So since our soil residue is disappearing, we've now started to use a little more of a mix of wheat and rye ahead of corn, strictly using rye ahead of soybeans, and now starting to look more at the use of other legumes and brassicas and such in the cover crops. So we've tried a lot of different things, seen a lot of really good results. I mentioned we've cut down on our herbicides. We're certainly reducing our residual herbicide applications. Corn, we've cut back probably 25% or so on the residuals that we use, and certainly save a lot of dollars as we've reduced the dollar of the cost of the products we're using. So in the last couple of years, as we have tested a wide variety of products, and part of the things that Mitchell has us doing here in conjunction with Continuum Ag is we test a lot of different products, whether they be biologicals, nutrient enhancers, micronutrients, a little bit of everything, seeing what works well in a more biologically driven system. And it's been a very good learning curve. The opportunity has been tremendous in the last few years to see these products and test them and figure out what works best for us. But one thing that we do see that is consistent is that we have to keep the cover crop going every year. And as we have utilized that system, all those products, all the biological activity and the biological products seem to work a little bit better. And so we're definitely pushing the microbial communities in our soil, making it look a lot better, and the soil is just working better, way better water infiltration, more consistency with our yield, and more stability with yields across the farm. If I had to go back and redo anything, the first few years that we started adopting cover crops, I would have started lighter in some areas, and tried the very first year at least, try with lighter rates and target a variety of areas. Get some strips in. Target your areas where the erosion is going to be a concern. But also go on some good soil, and then look at your poor producing areas as well. So try a variety of things, but the most important thing I can say is once you do it one year, be consistent with it. and do it multiple years in a row, because it takes 2 or 3, maybe 4 years to really see the big benefits, and consistent use of cover crop is the solution for that. I think as we have worked into it now several years, back the rates off. Now we're starting to increase our rates of cover crop, planting earlier, even trying some planting in June, some really early interseeded cover crops, and looking at the possibility. And we've tested now 3 years of 60-inch row corn and interseeding cover crops. So that's a great option, I think, if a person wants to adopt regenerative practices, a cover crop system, and especially in a corn on corn situation, to utilize 60-inch rows and give some of that soil a little bit of a break, but without sacrificing yield. I believe it's very possible that a person can do that.